Hello and welcome to another episode of We're Still Playing Borderlands 3. In today's video, we are covering a FLAK build that I like to call Fission FLAK. And for those that are unfamiliar with the word fission, and including me, fission is the action of dividing or splitting something into two or more parts. And then if you look on Google, it also shows nuclear fission as one of the things that it is closely related to. And this is perfect because we have a radiation build, our HP is cut in half, and we're also going to be dividing the enemies. I was going to say fissioning, but I don't think fissioning is a word. Here's a quick peek at the skill tree we're going to be using. And don't mind the stack bar that I have on right now. We're going to be using a Cosmic Stalker the majority of the time inside the setup. This is going to be good for the Maliwan takedown, true takedown mode, good for the bossing, the mobbing, be able to run Athenas and show off your guns on there, be able to run through Joey's Planet, all that other good stuff. Really good for mobbing as well as bossing. The one downside of this is that we have less than 51% HP for max HP, and that means that we are not going to be able to health gate, which is going to not really be the biggest problem in the world. You will feel it if you don't have that great of movement, but you can remix this build a little bit, switch up some of these anoints, and swap up your shield. You can just run a typical fadeaway setup. So our first gun of the day is going to be the Sandhawk. I know that this gun is probably something that people have been seeing over and over and over again, along with most of these other guns that are tuned perfectly for Mayhem 10, while the rest of our guns aren't really that great. Anyway, Sandhawk, very, very good. Inside this particular build, I wanted something that would be able to eat through Wochan as well as like armor bases in terms of health relatively quickly. So the Sandhawk with the weapon damage increased by 100% is something that's relatively good for what I'm using it for. The anoint that we're going to be mainly running, that 50% health, deal 150% bonus radiation damage. That would be good on this as well inside of most situations, but I really just wanted to eat through armor. So we have the Sandhawk with this. And you can swap this Sandhawk around depending on what you're killing and what you want to blow up, but this just eats through everything for the most part because it does way too much damage. Inside slot number 2, we have the Reflux, aka the upgraded Brainstormer. Now the Brainstormer was already one of FLAK's best shotguns in the game, and the Reflux is just a direct upgrade as well as it is corrosive, which means that it's absolutely disgusting. So this is going to be our main AOE, and it is very good at fade looping, which is going to allow you to survive inside this build because we don't have health gate, and if we get hit too much, we're going to end up folding. So slot number 3, we have the Recursion. Recursion is really good inside the setup because we are running a 3-element setup for this, which means that we're going to get a immense amount of ricochets coming out of this thing. That's going to work out well inside of those really packed areas, especially inside of Slaughter Shaft when there are a bunch of enemies, or the bridge portion, or just really any portion of the true takedown for the Maliwan takedown. You'll be able to just blow up a lot of enemies at the same time. This is going to be worse at getting you back your cooldown, but the enemies are probably going to end up blowing up if there are enough of them, and if there are enough ricochets going through. So it really doesn't matter too much, but this is a really good long range AoE option, while the Reflux is you can mess around with it longer range if you can get your shots off. 4 slot. Now this is where you can mix some things around and play around with what you really do enjoy. The Yellowcake is a great launcher. The Hedgehog is also a great launcher. Both of these are going to be things that are going to be able to blow up bosses. The front load is really good because it's going to remove 60% of your HP, and that is going to go ahead and allow you to have your anoints up at all times, which is going to give you that 150% bonus radiation damage. So for your grenades, the Transfusion Tracker is going to be your defensive option, while the Hunter Seeker is going to be your offensive. The Transfusion is really good at bringing you back your shield. Now you don't have health gate, so it's going to end up helping you out, but it's not going to end up being the craziest thing in the world inside the setup. But it is a cool little thing to play around with. The Hunter Seeker is really going to be the thing that's going to be recommended in terms of a setup using a Hedgehog. That way you can proc Leave No Trace with it, proc your Fear's Attack, get your Pearl up. If you are utilizing a Pearl, you can just blow up the enemies at a very good rate in terms of the bossing portion. Then Leave No Trace is going to bring you back ammo, not only for your Hedgehog, but whatever gun you're using at the time. You're not really ammo inefficient inside the setup at all, other than the Sandhawk, and then Leave No Trace really isn't going to save the Sandhawk when it comes to the Hunter Seeker interaction with Leave No Trace. So Hunter Seeker offensive, Transfusion is your defensive option. And then it comes down to your class mod. The Cosmic Stalker is super duper good inside the setup due to the fact that it is boosting up your hunter skill power. And inside of this particular variation of the tree, we're using a lot of hunter skills. I'm going to look at that in a second. And then if you're running the Gorillas in the Mist variation of this build, you want to go ahead and rock a stack bot. The Monarch is a very good gun to utilize with a stack bot, and you'll be able to just eat through the enemies at a very good pace. One thing that I would recommend in terms of substats is playing around with it and see if you like action skill cooldown rate a bit more than adding more damage to the class mod if you do have one with a 3 roll in terms of damage. Due to the fact that our invisibility is most of our survivability inside this build, with invisibility and movement speed being pretty much the key things that we're playing around with, action skill cooldown rate felt really good and allowed me to get back inside of Fadeaway even faster than I would be able to typically, and not really have the opportunity to let myself get divided or hit with a good old launcher to the face by the enemies. Great thing about utilizing the front loader is the fact that you can run it with Pearl, and this is going to allow you to get the most damage that you possibly can out of this particular setup. Now, you can't run around with a last stand victory rush. The last stand invulnerability is going to give you a bit more bulk and allow you to stay up a bit more. You are going to be going down a bit inside this build if you aren't maneuvering too well. So if you feel like you're going down too much, or if you feel like you're uncomfortable with the setup using the Pearl, you can run a last stand. I would recommend a last stand victory rush. Running a auto idle really isn't going to be the craziest thing in the world because we don't have health gate. So we're going to take a look at the skill tree. So for the most part, we're just maxing out on damage inside of our red tree. We have our 4 points into second intention. This is going to allow us to reload faster and keep up our general flow of DPS. And we're going to be running around with the Spur and Scorcher for this particular setup. Now for our green is something that probably looks a little bit odd. So we are maxing out on our damage from Furious Attack as well as Overclocked. And then your points into all my BFFs, so you can move these things around. To where you want to go ahead and put those. So the 2 points in here felt really good for when there's downtime and you're not shooting at anything. So you're just running around the true takedown, or you're like looting or whatever. Your pet's going to be able to sustain a bit better inside those situations. Then turn tail and run is good for that HP regeneration as well as that damage reduction while you are moving around. Then we have Not My Circus as the augment, which is going to let our pet tank for us. The anterior dead is going to provide us with some movement speed as well as some HP regeneration. The HP regeneration is going to end up helping out our pet and keep it nice and sustained while it is tanking for us. It's going to keep the pet alive very, very well. And then we have Who Rescued Who. Just 1 point of this is more than enough since we do a lot of DPS inside of this build. 1 point in He Bites, so when the enemies end up shooting your pet, those reflections are going to end up stacking up your frenzy. And if you want to run around with the Gorillas in the Mist variation, you can throw on the good old Gorillas in the Mist. You can plop on a stack bot, and this is going to work really well with something like a Monarch. And there are a couple other good Gorillas in the Mist guns that you can utilize with stack bot. The OPQ actually felt really good utilizing a stack bot, even though the shock does reset it. It felt a little bit better than the Cosmic Stalker from playing around with it. And that is it for me. If you have any questions about anything, go ahead and let me know. Adios.